Hello, my friend. Please subscribe to my channel. Your subscription is very important to me. Since Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine, NATO member states have consistently supported Ukraine. This support has come in many forms, with numerous countries sending critical arms packages to help Ukraine defend itself against ongoing Russian aggression. However, despite repeated appeals from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine has not yet been granted membership in the NATO alliance and thus remains without the full protections and privileges that membership entails. That stance may soon shift. During a recent summit attended by key European leaders and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, a strong message was delivered: Ukraine will join NATO. The statement reaffirmed long-standing commitments to Ukraine's future in the alliance, regardless of opposition from Russian President Vladimir Putin. This announcement emerged from the Bucharest 9 and Northern European Summit held on June 2nd in Vilnius, Lithuania. The gathering brought together leaders from northern European countries such as Sweden and Finland, as well as representatives from all 9 nations of the Bucharest 9 B9 group. The B9, established in 2015 in Romania's capital, includes Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. It was formed in direct response to perceived Russian aggression, especially following Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. Given their geographic proximity and historical ties to Russia, these nations feared that they could be future targets, prompting them to coordinate their security policies more closely through shared meetings and information exchange. This most recent summit aimed to align the security positions of the B9 and Northern European countries, enhance cooperation along NATO's eastern flank, and plan continued assistance for Ukraine in advance of the upcoming NATO summit in The Hague, scheduled for June 24-26. President Zelensky participated in the Vilnius summit, and a significant portion of the discussions focused on Ukraine's future. After hearing from Zelensky and consulting among themselves, all the attending leaders reached a unanimous agreement. They pledged continued political, military, economic, and humanitarian assistance to Ukraine with the long-term objective of achieving lasting peace in the region. The joint statement issued by summit leaders, Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda, Polish President Andrzej Duda, and Romanian President Klaus Iohannis, outlined the shared conclusions and reiterated the persistent threat posed by Russia. They emphasized the necessity of a firm and united NATO response to Putin's ongoing aggression. We have gathered at a critical juncture as the security environment continues to deteriorate due to Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, the statement read. This war results in the loss of life, civilian suffering, and blatant violations of international law. Russia remains the most significant, long-term, and immediate threat to Euro-Atlantic security. NATO must adapt its strategy accordingly and be prepared for all possible scenarios. The statement also underlined NATO's collective strength and the obligation of its members to defend one another and uphold global peace. All participating nations committed to moving towards spending at least 5% of their GDPs on defense, while also advocating for a stronger transatlantic defense industry, faster weapons production, and deeper international cooperation. Russia's aggression was unequivocally condemned, and support for the Kremlin from nations like Iran, China, Belarus, and North Korea was also criticized. Crucially, the statement once again reaffirmed unwavering support for Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders. Territorial integrity is a core principle of international law, it emphasized, and it must always be protected. Ukraine's security, the leaders stated, is inseparable from the security of the Euro-Atlantic region. They pledged to maintain their broad-based support to ensure Ukraine is in the strongest position possible to reach a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace rooted in the UN Charter and international law. But the most significant message from the summit didn't come from the joint statement, it came from NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte himself. When asked whether Ukraine would join NATO by 2030, he responded without hesitation, "You know that in Washington, all 32 allies have made a clear commitment to Ukraine's irreversible path to NATO membership, not tied to any end date or peace agreement, but as a long-term strategic objective. That path is already being built, with ongoing cooperation through command centers in Wiesbaden, training operations in Poland, and numerous other collaborative efforts." This bold assertion was undoubtedly intended to resonate in the Kremlin. Putin has long opposed NATO expansion, especially any inclusion of Ukraine. He has cited the alliance's encroachment as a key justification for launching the invasion in 2022. In a February 2022 speech, weeks before the war began, Putin warned that Ukraine's NATO membership could trigger a direct conflict between Russia and Europe, saying it would force European nations into a war they did not want and could not win. Since then, Russia has consistently demanded that Ukraine never be permitted to join NATO. In June 2024, Putin claimed that Moscow had made a genuine peace proposal to Kyiv. His conditions included the withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from 4 regions, DPR, LPR, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson, as well as Ukraine's formal declaration of neutrality, non-alignment and non-nuclear status. More recently, Russian officials have insisted that any future peace must involve a written guarantee from the West that NATO will not expand further east, effectively barring Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova and Bosnia and Herzegovina from ever joining. It's clear why Putin is making these demands. Ukrainian membership in NATO would signify a catastrophic failure of his strategy and bring the alliance directly to Russia's doorstep. With Finland joining NATO in April 2023 and Sweden following in March 2024, the alliance has steadily closed in on Russia, limiting its ability to act freely in the region. As it stands, Russia appears unwilling to accept any peace that allows Ukraine to join NATO. But based on Rutte's statement, NATO has no intention of backing down. Ukraine's membership is no longer a question of if, but when. In fact, NATO first declared Ukraine's future membership as far back as 2008 during the Bucharest summit. That decision may have been what prompted Putin to begin planning the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the full-scale invasion in 2022. The process of joining NATO varies from country to country and can take years. Finland and Sweden, for example, applied for membership on May 18, 2022, and were admitted within 2 years. Montenegro's journey took nearly a decade, from its initial invitation to full accession. North Macedonia waited over 20 years. Ukraine's timeline remains uncertain, likely hinging on the conclusion of the current war, or at least a ceasefire. President Zelensky has pushed for an accelerated accession process. In 2022, soon after the war began, Ukraine formally applied for fast-track NATO membership, arguing that it already met the alliance's standards and values. He's even said he would step down from the presidency if that would help Ukraine gain entry. These remarks came in early 2025 after former US President Donald Trump accused Zelensky of authoritarianism and refusing to hold elections. Clearly, Ukraine is eager to join NATO, and the latest developments from Vilnius will offer hope. Membership would drastically change Ukraine's strategic position. The biggest advantage? Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which obligates all members to defend any ally under attack. If Ukraine had been a NATO member in 2022, Russia's invasion would have triggered a collective military response from every NATO nation, including the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany. The sheer size and power of NATO's combined military force far outweigh Russia's capabilities. Even with Moscow's recent military buildup and recruitment drives offering bonuses of $40,000, the Russian military cannot match NATO's 3.4 million active personnel, let alone the broader mobilization capacity of all 32 member states. In terms of air power, NATO dominates, fielding over 22,000 aircraft compared to Russia's roughly 4,300. NATO also commands a significantly larger and more advanced navy, including 16 aircraft carriers, hundreds of destroyers and submarines, and a vast fleet of support ships. On land, Russia maintains large numbers of tanks and artillery, but NATO still fields more tanks, over 11,000, and greater overall firepower. Most crucially, NATO's strength lies in its unity. Military leaders across the alliance coordinate strategy, share intelligence, and support one another. It is the most formidable coalition ever assembled, designed to deter major conflict and uphold peace. Even Putin, despite his bravado, would be reckless to confront such a force head-on. The only area where Russia rivals NATO is in nuclear arms. While NATO includes 3 nuclear powers, the US, UK, and France, Russia maintains a similar stockpile of warheads. But a nuclear exchange would be mutually catastrophic. Even Putin understands that a nuclear war offers no victory, only devastation on a global scale. If Ukraine can secure a ceasefire and ultimately gain NATO membership, the threat of future Russian invasions would significantly diminish. Russia would find nearly its entire western border flanked by NATO states, from Finland in the north to Ukraine in the south, leaving only Belarus as a buffer. Ukraine would also benefit from access to cutting-edge military technology, joint training, intelligence cooperation, and defense investment. NATO membership could transform Ukraine not only militarily, but economically. Greater stability would attract investment, boost trade, and improve living standards. It could even pave the way for Ukraine to join other alliances such as the European Union. In short, NATO membership would be a historic turning point for Ukraine, and while Russia will undoubtedly continue to resist, the alliance must hold firm in its commitment to Ukraine's integration when the time is right.